is Joanna. I'm actually doing operations and research at AustrianStartups, but I'm also the local rep for Vienna because our whole team is sitting in Vienna, so I guess that's a bit of a special situation. But in order that also somebody has an eye on the activities in Vienna, so that's also part of my job in this case.
My name is Anna Iarotska. I am co-founder and CEO of RoboWunderkind. This is RoboWunderkind. So our product is a programmable robot for children aged 5+. And the idea is to give possibilities for very young children to build their own robots and program them in intuitive visual apps. And by doing this, we want to inspire the next generation of inventors, creators, and problem solvers.
Hey, my name is Peter. I'm one of the founders of Refurbed. Refurbed is a marketplace for refurbished electronics. So these are phones, laptops, and tablets. They're completely renewed. They look like new and function like new. And as a consumer, you actually save up to 40%. And there you get at least 1 year of warranty, and the product's also super sustainable.
I believe that in general, the team is the most important part of a startup. So to have a diverse and motivated team, I think that's the most important factor for startups' success in the end.
I think what matters most is a product market fit. So the product, its feature should have correspond to a real need in the market. And also in terms of how it will reach its potential customers, distribution channels, sales channels, marketing channels. I think the most important is to make sure that the product has a real potential for scaling.
I think what is important here for this question is to differentiate on at what stage and what level. In the very beginning, it's really the founders being able to first of all, identify what they actually want to do and then really execute on it and having a complementary founder setup. And what I mean with that is, for example, with Refurbed, there are 3 different founders. We have one guy who's really good in sales, we have one guy who's really good in tech, and then we have one guy who's really good with numbers and marketing. And that enabled us to basically tick off all of our aspects of the company and have somebody who really knows what he or she is doing in that element. And I think at the very beginning, this was very important because we managed to build the first steps of the company, just the 3 of us, just the founders, which made it, a very lean and also very fast setup.
Well, I guess in Vienna, as Vienna is the biggest city obviously in Austria, there's a lot of stuff going on here, which has a lot of benefits, but probably also some downsides. So I believe that the startup community here in Vienna is developing quite well, as in general in Austria, within the recent years, we have seen that there's more focus on the topic of startups. However, I believe it can still be more, obviously. And there's a lot of research institutions and universities in Vienna that offer a lot of potential and a lot of good ideas that are out there. So I believe that in that sense, Vienna has a lot of good advantages or a lot of benefits also compared to other cities, and that we can still should more use these benefits and facilities that we have here.
So I've been part of startup community since 2014 in Vienna, so end of 2013, so it's been quite some time, and I see that it has grown a lot, which is great. I think now it's becoming every year bigger, and there is a lot of support in the startup community, so people are really open to give feedback and to support each other. So I think this is great. On what could be improved, I think still we're a small community, so there is a number of factors which are maybe not ideal for startups and this is the small Austrian market. access to capital, in some way also access to talent. So like there's always like pluses and minuses, but I definitely see startup community growing and developing here.
I think there are a lot of good elements about the startup community in Vienna. I think it's very dynamic right now, and there's a lot of stuff happening, especially on the later stage startups, where more and more companies were able to raise big financing rounds, which is super important to attract talent to Vienna and to actually hire people. For a startup founder, I think what is always super helpful is to visit the meetups, talk to people there. You know, these people could be either your first potential users or customers, but they could also give you hints and insights on how to approach things, and maybe they can connect you to somebody. So in general, you know, with the more people you talk, the better it is typically. But at the same time, you have to find a balance between only talking to people and actually executing. Because I also met a lot of people who tried to go to every event, but spent way too much time being seen and telling people about their idea versus actually executing and building it. And so I think it's important to balance the time in the beginning very, very effectively.
Also, with what I said before, in that sense, I think it's very important that you have a diverse team, so that people have different skill sets, and that you try to find team members with complementary skills. So I think that would be a good advice, to look for people that have a different skill set than yourself, and then as well to not be afraid that you actually talk about your idea. So not be afraid of someone stealing your idea, but just talk to others, get a lot of feedback, and try to improve your idea based on what you hear from other people.
So first of all is to make sure that you just get started and not overthink it, because I think a lot is constantly changing in the process, and a lot of lessons can be learned only in the process. But this said, there is already also like a lot of thinking methodologies, processes, and frameworks on how to question your own startup idea, and this is definitely also has to be done and learned. So on one hand, just get started, like don't think, do it. But second, make sure that you learned from what is out there and applied all thinking in building startups which already exist also to your own idea. And the third one, I think be ambitious. It is, because it's a very difficult thing to do, to build a startup. So make sure you are building something which is worth building and has a huge potential.
Sure. So the first one is really get a good founder team. And the second one is really know the problem you're solving and understand whether this is a problem worth solving, right? I mean, there are so many problems out there in the world, and most of them just don't really matter, right? And so it's really important to, first of all, know what you're solving, and then is it actually worth solving? And then the third one is to talk to customers and users as soon as possible, right? If you have identified your problem, if you know what we want to actually solve, talk to the people who have that problem as much as you can. For example, for us, that meant that for the first, I think, 100 or 200 customers we had, we called each individual one of them and tried to learn as much as possible from them regarding why did you buy from us, how was the experience, what could we have done better, whether we did a really good job as well, right? So get feedback fast and meaningful.
So Vienna is an amazing, very international city, and this is again. So I've been living in Vienna since 2005, and I see how Vienna changed and became much more international, which is great. Like for startups, it's great to have a very international pool of talent. People speaking different languages, coming with different perspectives and backgrounds. So I think Vienna is definitely probably the best location to be for a startup in Austria.
I think still in general, it's still, Vienna is also on a European level, I think still a good place to found a company. If you compare it to other cities in Austria, obviously I don't know how it is to found a company somewhere else, but I can imagine it must be really, really hard because the access to talent is, I think, very limited in all the other cities. And that might not be that big of a problem at the very beginning, but at a later stage it's becoming a big problem and a big, basically barrier to growth if you cannot hire the best people, and if you cannot hire really experienced people, because that's what you need when you're 2 or 3 years old.
My motivation was I saw a potential for this startup idea, and I understood in order to make it happen, we would need to do it by ourselves. So like, this is a great idea, and this is really something worth trying. So it was connected to a certain idea. On the other hand, like, it's also, I understand that being a startup founder is probably the best way to make sure that all energy you invest, like everything you do is directly connected to the outcome. So for me, it's like a personal challenge as well, and it's something which, given like the product idea is something which genuinely motivates you, I think that's the best way to live your life and give you 200% every day. It's working on your idea and making this idea big and successful.
My motivation to found Refurbed was twofold. On the one hand, I was having actually a very interesting job. I was working as a consultant, but I really didn't see the meaning in it, right? So I didn't see the impact, and the only thing I saw was that I helped other companies increase their shareholder value. That was nothing that motivated me that much. And on the other hand, I wanted to do something that was meaningful and good for our environment, right? And I always still wanted to have a good career and wanted to have also obviously to make some money as well. But I always had this conflict of interest between, I want to have impact in a positive sense, but at the same time want to have a great career. But then when we had the idea for Refurbed, I immediately realized, okay, this is actually perfect because I can do something that makes sense. I can do something that has a lot of positive impact on our society. And at the same time, it's a really good business idea as well. Hence, this was the perfect mix for me. And that's why, I was convinced that we have to do this within a few hours, actually. And within the first week, for example, we bought the first domains. Everything then happened really, really quickly.
I guess in Vienna there's a lot of things happening in the creative industries, and also culture, tech, and probably in comparison also to the other states, there's some more activities going on also in the financial areas, as far as I'm informed. I guess that's also due to most of the government and bank and also financial institutions having their Austrian headquarters in Vienna. As I already said before, I think there's a lot of potential in Vienna. So we have all these universities, we have the students, we have research institutions, and of course headquarters of big corporates. That's definitely a big plus for the environment or the ecosystem in Vienna. But on the other hand, what I potentially see as downsides as well, that it's quite hard to stand out here and to really connect to people. Because obviously there's so many startups also in comparison to other states, that it's also harder to actually get into the spotlight. So that might be a disadvantage for people.
In general, I think Vienna is a great place to found a company. There are a couple of good things about Vienna. First of all, there is a big enough scene, so there are a lot of people who are attracted to startups. So hiring in the beginning is quite easy. The second, which is also good, that there are a lot of grants and subsidies. which can be an important first step to get the company alive, but also never rely on getting a grant or a subsidy or anything like that. It's because it always takes longer than expected, and it brings a lot of problems with it as well. What I think is also great, if you're a successful young startup in Vienna, then you can very quickly get a lot of spotlight, right? So if you do something that is cool, if you have early successes, then you're well known very quickly in the scene, and that helps you get even more visibility and helps you getting more PR, which is obviously super important in the very beginning. At a later stage, Vienna is still a good place, but what we see right now, what is really tough is hiring people and getting a lot of talent to move to Vienna. Obviously easier than in many other parts in Europe, but still we don't have that many big digital companies where we can hire from. Like if you compare it to Berlin or London or so, obviously the talent pool there is much bigger than it is in Vienna.
I think just honest exchange or helping others. I mean, it's still happening and stuff, but I guess that might be something which is a bit easier in the Bundesländer or states, because the communities there are really small, and you get to know each other, like the startup community, and you get to know each other on a personal level very soon, which is probably a bit harder in Vienna. So maybe it would be nice to have more smaller meetings or more meetings in an informal setting. But yeah, maybe actually Corona will lead to that, as we cannot have that many like big events. So maybe that might change the meeting or event structure a bit as well.